Uh, and we are on Yud Gimel. Let's move this out of the way. Yud Gimel. Okay. A jug of kat, you're right. Yeah, a jug of katos ash that touch a sheretz is tahor. If he placed it on top of it, Eliezer claims the tahor and the common care tame. If it touch on food stuff, drinks, or holy scriptures, it is tahor. If he placed it on top of them, Rabbi Yossi declares a tahor and the common clear tame. A person who is tahor in regard to mekatos who touched an oven, if he touched it with his hand, he's tame, and if he touched it with his foot, he is tahor. If he was standing on top of the oven and stretched his hand outside the airspace of the oven with the flask in it, and similarly, if a pole is placed on top of the oven and on it are two jugs, one on this side, one on that, Rabbi Kiva declares the contents of the flask and jug tahor, and the sages declare the contents of the flask tame. If he was standing outside the airspace of an oven and he stretched his hands to a window, took the flask and passed it over the top of the oven, Rabbi Akiva declares a tame and the sages declare a tahor. But this person who is tahor for katos may stand on top of the oven with an empty utensil that is tahor for katos in his hand, or with a utensil filled with water that is not sanctified. Okay.
So it's just interesting to note over here how Chachamim versus Rabbi Akiva are consistent in their opinions, both Lekula and Lechumra, where Rabbi Akiva is going about like what airspace is it in, and Chachamim think, okay, where is the weight being held? So that's the difference between them, and they're consistent whether it's Lekula or Lechumra. Okay. Lagin shel chatas. Okay, you've got a flagon is how my translation went. Flagon of chatas water shenaga b'shel kodesh. These two kalim touched each other, or truma, right? Kodesh b'shel truma. We're gonna. It's basically the same category because even though they themselves are tahor and they've got a level of kedusha to them, nonetheless they're considered tamei as regards chatas water. Okay. So if the two vessels touch each other, shel chatas tame, then the chatas water becomes tame, but the others are fine. Okay, shel kodesh shel truma tahorin. They don't have that chumrah where something that became something tame that touches their outside. Assuming these are, I think these are klei cheres. Do they have to be shel klei cheres? Not even sure if they have to be. At any rate, they don't have that chumrah that we have by chatas water that creates that turns them tamei if the outside of the kli touches another kli. Because in general, a kli will not transmit tumah to another kli.
Mm.
But we have this chumrah over here specifically by chatas water. Shnein b'shtei yadav. Okay, so a guy is holding a kli containing chatas water in one hand, and he's holding the kli with any other water, anything else that contains even kodesh or truma. Okay, shnehem tameim. Why do they both become tameh? Because the person, first of all, if he was tahor for chatas, and now he touched this kli that has something that's less tahor, that's less on a lesser condition than chatas, then as far as chatas is concerned, he has now become tameh. Okay, so now the chatas water now automatically becomes tameh. Okay, now because that water is tameh and he's no longer carrying it for the purpose of sprinkling, it still has that effect of making him tameh because he's carrying chatas water that can no longer be used. So he now automatically becomes tameh, and now he transmits that tumah back to the kodesh that he was carrying. Okay. Shneim b'shnei niyaros. But what happens if he is holding them with a paper in between? Now the paper itself is tahor. It's insusceptible to tumah. Okay, so since he does not contract that tumah, so to speak, from the kodesh, because he's not touching the actual kli. He's holding the kli, but he's not touching it. He never contracts that pseudo tumah that makes the chatas tameh, and therefore the whole chain reaction never begins.
So the paper that's wrapped around the flask, it keeps it from getting tameh.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay. V'shel chatas b'niyar v'shel truma biyado shneihen tmeim. What happens if only the truma, if only the chatas is wrapped in paper, but the truma is directly touching his hand, then it doesn't. Then the whole reaction takes place again because he becomes tamei legabe chatas because he's holding the kli containing lesser kodesh. So he becomes tamei regarding the chatas, and now he's holding it now. And this term is not transmitted by touch; it's transmitted by carrying. So even though he's not touching it, he's just carrying some chatas water that is no longer fit for use. He becomes tamei again and transmits the truma back to the kodesh. However, if the other way around, shel truma b'niyar v'shel chatas biyado. So if the truma has got the paper under it, the chatas is directly on his hand, shnein toharim, because again the chain reaction doesn't begin. Rabbi Yeshua Amar shel chatas tamei. Now he says that even in such a case, the chatas water becomes tamei. What is his logic is because he holds that even a kli tahor that could become tamei becomes a madaf for chatas. We saw this at the beginning of the parak when we said that there was a machlokes. And let's just see in Mishna Aleph, I think it was. Is there? Or was it the second? Where was it? Rabbi Yeshua. No, it was Rabbi Eliezer there. Beg your pardon. There was beg your pardon. Which Mishnah are we in? Sorry, now I've lost my place. Okay, so let's just see. Tell me with myself with Hesed. Okay, so he holds that even a kli tahor that could become tamei will become a madaf to chatas. So even though it's not susceptible to tumas midras, but nonetheless it becomes he's of the minority opinion that it becomes a madaf even though it's not susceptible to midras tuma. Okay, but the halacha does not follow him. Okay, so there are two bowls on the ground. One is chatas water, one is something of a lesser kedusha, and he touched them. Okay, shel chatas tamei v'shel kodesh v'shel truma tahorim. Okay, so only the chatas one will, if he touched them simultaneously, that is. So because he's touched he has become tamei, the chatas water will become tamei. But the truma one will not become tamei. Why is that? Because the mei chatas was not matamei the person because he did not carry them. All he did was he touched it on the outside, and since and therefore if the person himself never became tamei, then he's not matamei the kli with the other with the kodesh.
I thought because of his hands, if he touched the flask, the mekatos, he would become tamei then.
No, but he doesn't. He becomes the tuma is not because he didn't touch the water itself. He was the tuma of from the mechatas is not from touching the kli; it's from carrying the mechatas.
Okay. Right.
Okay. So that's if he's not carrying it, then he doesn't become tamei.
So if he picked it up and moved it a little bit, then that would be making tamei then.
Right. So there, if he moved them, so if he moved them not directly, so for example, if he took a stick and pushed them, okay, Rabbi Yeshua matame, the Chachamim matarin. Okay, so the logic again over here is Rabbi Yeshua is the same reason as before, because he holds that that he touched that because he moved the kli with the kodesh in it, that becomes a madaf for him. But Chacham said there's no madaf in this case. There's no rabbinical tumah over here because it's not a midras, and therefore he doesn't become tame. The whole reaction doesn't begin. But if he had actually become tame from the
Right.
mud, then yeah, it makes sense, because if he moves the mechatas, then he's going to become tame from it.
Okay.
Okay. Next paragraph. So he had a flask of water, of mechatas, which he left open. He stepped out the room and came back and found it covered. So now clearly some human got involved over here. So if a person came and touched this over there, we're going to assume that it's pasul now, because most people are not tahor for chatas. It's just not something that most people do. Okay, so the assumption is, we don't know who put the lid on the thing. It must have been somebody who was not tahor for chatas, and therefore the water has become pasul. What happens if he left it covered? And he came and found that the cover had fallen off onto the side, let's say. If it could have been from a weasel that came and knocked it off and came and drank from it, and we said that that's one of the animals that makes it pasul if it drinks from it, or a nachash l'divrei Rabban Gamliel, or a snake according to Rabban Gamliel, or she'arad ba tal balayla, or if dew fell into it overnight. We saw that discussion before. Psula, then yes, it would be pasul, but otherwise the implication is that it could have been knocked off by the wind. It could have been knocked off by some creature that just went in passing, and we don't have to assume that it's not pasul. Achatas eina nitzola b'tzamid pasil. Now, there's no tzamid pasil by achatas. Normally, things that are that are tahor are protected inside the ohel hameis by a tzamid pasil, by a sealed cover of a klicheres. However, this is not the case with mechatas. That does not get protected because it's resting in a place that is tameh. So just the fact that it's resting on a place that's tameh is enough already to be pasul. Okay. However, the water itself, if he brought if you put the spring water into a container and put it into a tzamid pasil, and that went through an ohel hameis, that is fine. It's protected because the mayim chayim doesn't have a din that it has to be resting in a tahor place. It's only the finished product that has to be resting in a tahor place. Okay.
All right.
Kol hasafek tahor l'truma. Anything that's in a safek tahor l'truma, if it's doubtfully tahor for truma, we're not tahor lechatas. It's also tahor, any safek truma, in other words, which we paskin is ultimately is tahor for truma. So if the same doubt arises with chatas water, then we say that's the same. It's also called tahor. Kol hataloi letruma nishpach lechatas. So if it's a situation where truma, a safek arises with truma, where you would not be allowed to eat it, but you also would not be allowed to burn it or destroy it, so you got to just kind of leave it. That nishpach lechatas. So they were machmir with chatas, and you say just pour it out. There's nothing you can do with it. Okay. Im asu al gabav taharos. If in such a case, a person they'd done sprinkling, and then they said, oh, but this doubt arose before you did all these sprinklings, teluyos. Then everything then all of the taharos that the person who had been sprinkled went and did there afterwards, is he's transmitted that doubtful status to anything. So, for example, if it was a kohen who was tamei meis and they sprinkled this water on him, he went to mikveh, came out, and went and in the evening he starts eating and touching truma and serving it around, and somebody burst in and said that mei chatas that was sprinkled on you today was doubtful. There was a doubtful thing that it should have, and had it been truma, it would have been taloi. Then oops. Now everything that Kohen has touched is now in truma is now taloi. Harifafos tehoris lekodesh v'litruma v'lechatas. Harifafos is shvachos shel eitz. That's let me just get that translation properly. A sec. lattice work, that is. Okay. Lattice work is tahar for it's tahar for kodesh and for truma and for chatas. Now it's not mechabel tuma at all because it's flatware. It's wood flatware, so there's no and you wouldn't stand on it either. So it's completely tahar. Rabbi Eliezer meir haraados tameos lechatas. However, says Rabbi Eliezer, if it's loosely fastened boards are impure for chatas. Why does Rabbi Eliezer say such a thing? That if they're poorly joined boards that shake when a person leans on them, he considers them tamei for chatas because a person could sit on them, and therefore they'd be susceptible to midras. Okay, we're running a bit late. I'm not going to be able to do all of the chazaras, but let's start.
Head base. The person sanctifying the katos water should not wear shoes because if liquid would fall on one of the shoes, it is contaminated, and the shoe contaminates him. Thus, this one says, which is that which contaminates you cannot contaminate me, yet you can contaminate me. If liquid fell on one's skin, he is tahor. If it fell on his clothes, the clothes got contaminated and contaminate him. Thus, this one says, that which contaminates you cannot contaminate me, yet you can contaminate me. The person burning the Parah and the sacrificial bowls that are burned, or the one who sends the goat to Azal, still contaminate clothes. All contaminate clothes. The Parah Aduma, the sacrificial bowls that are burned, and the he-goat that are sent to Azal themselves do not contain the clothing. Thus, this one says, that which contaminates you cannot contaminate me, yet you can contaminate me. Concerning one who eats from a carcass of a kosher bird and is still in his throat, he contaminates his clothing. The carcass itself does not contaminate clothes. Thus, this one says, that which contaminates you cannot contaminate me, yet you can contaminate me. Okay, we are on to the guy.
Yeah.
The guy Yud Aleph Vav. The nega appeared on the garment, the patch is saved, the nega reappeared on the patch, the garment is burned. Parts of a previously confined garment was used to patch a tahor garment. If nega reappeared on the garment, the patch is burnt. If nega reappeared on the patch, the first garment is burned, and the patch functions as an indicator for the second garment. On a coat that is colored in white parts, the white parts expand from one to another. Rabbi Eliezer was asked, "What if there is only one white section?" He said to them, "I was not taught." Yehuda ben Sarah said to him, "I can expound on the subject." And he said to him, "If it is to uphold the words of the sages, you may." And he said to him, "Perhaps it will remain the same for 2 weeks, and clothing that remains the same for 2 weeks is tameh." He said to him, "You are a great scholar. You have upheld the words of the sages. Continuous expansion may be of any size. Distant expansion may be the size of a grist, and returning expansion may be the size of a grist. The warp and the weft threads are immediately susceptible to the guyam." Rabbi Yehuda says the warp is susceptible only from the time it is boiled. The weft immediately in spun threads or linen from when they are bleached. How much yarn must be on the spool to be susceptible to guyam? Enough to weave from it 3 by 3 finger breadths warp and weft, even if it is all warp with that or all weft thread. If the thread is disconnected, it does not become tummy when the guyam. The Yehuda says even if it is split only once and he tied it, it does not become tummy.
Okay.
Halem.
Yeah.
Good. There are 3 mats. A mat designed for sitting was susceptible to becoming tummy with midrash tuma. A mat of desired susceptible to becoming tummy with corpse tuma, and the mat of presses is job for any form of tuma. There are 3 water skins. There are 3 shepherd's pouches. Those that contain the prescribed amount are susceptible to becoming tummy with midrash tuma, and those that cannot contain the prescribed amount are susceptible to becoming tummy and corpse tuma. And those made of fish skin are tahor from any form of tuma. There are 3 animal hides. A hide designed for use as a rug is susceptible to becoming tummy with midrash tuma. A hide used as a wrapping for utensils is susceptible to becoming tummy with corpse tuma. And a hide intended for use as straps or sandals is tahor from any form of tuma. There are 3 sheep.
We're done.
That's it. Okay, and we are Zvachim. Hey, if the cloth garment was taken outside the curtains, he should re-enter with it and wash it in a holy place. If it was contaminated with tuma outside the curtains, he should rip it up and then re-enter and wash it in a holy place. The earthenware vessel was taken outside the curtains, he should re-enter with it and make it in the holy place. If it was contaminated with tuma outside the curtains, he should puncture it and then re-enter and break it in a holy place. If the copper vessel was taken outside the curtains, he should re-enter with it and purge it and rinse it in a holy place. If it was contaminated with tuma outside the curtains, he should breach it, re-enter, and purge and rinse it in a holy place. Whether one cooked on it or poured hot liquid onto it, whether it was the meat of a moist holy offerings or the offerings of lesser holiness that require purging and rinsing, Reb Shimon says offerings of lesser holiness do not require purging and rinsing. Reb Tarfon says if one cooked it in it from the beginning of the festival, he may continue to cook in it for the entire festival. Now, the comments say with the conclusion of the period of eating comes the requirement of purging and rinsing. And purging is one who purges a cup, and rinsing is one who rinses a cup. Purging is done with hot water, and rinsing it with cold water, and the spit and the grill are purged in hot water. Okay, let's see if I can get. So that's it for that, and then we're on to Zarm. Okay, Gimel. One who says not chulin, I shall not eat from it. You unfit or not permissible, ritually poor or ritually contaminated, leftover sacrificial meat or pickle. Those declarations are binding, like a lamb, are the enclosures, like the logs, like the altar, like the sanctuary, like the Yerushalayim, or if he vowed and made references to one of the accessories of the altar, even though he did not mention korban, he has vowed with reference to offering. Rabbi Yehuda says one who states Yerushalayim has not said anything. One who says offering, burnt offering, meal offering, sin offering, thanksgiving offering, or peace offering, that which I eat of yours, it is binding, and Rabbi Yehuda permits it. A korban, or broken, or korban, that which I eat of yours, it is binding. The korban, I shall eat of yours, I shall not eat of yours, or Meir prohibits it. One who says to another, Kohen, my mouth from talking to you, my hand from walking with you, and my feet from walking with you, it is binding. The following are not binding. May that which I eat of yours be fooling, like pork, like an idol, like perforated skins, like carcass, like trephis, like reptiles, like crawling creatures, like the collar of Aaron, or like Aaron's truma. This is not binding. And one who says to his wife, you are to me like a mother, you will find grounds to another nether from elsewhere, so that he may not be lightheaded regarding such matters. And one who declares, Kohen, on my sleeping, on my talking, on my walking, or one who says to his wife, Kohen, and I'll habitation with you, this is governed by he shall not violate his word. Okay, one who swears Shavua that I shall not sleep, that I shall not speak, that I shall not walk, is forbidden to do so.
Okay,
And we
stop there.
stop here?
I'm gonna go, yeah.
Okay. I was trying to get you. And I won't be back now until Sunday, so all right? Because I'm leaving